Evolution is something I find fascinating, and it blows my mind at just how the process works. Whilst I have a very basic understanding of how different kinds of living organisms have developed and diversified over time, and that is the understatement of the century, it still shocks me when theists flat out refuse that evolution is really a thing. Today, a theist does exactly that, and I offer my opinion, with the help of a new friend. Hello, I'm the Skeptic. I watch videos on YouTube that make extraordinary claims, whether that's flat earth or strange conspiracies, but mostly the claim that a god is real, and then explain why I can't accept their position. Before we get into today's video, please do subscribe, hit that bell notification to be alerted for my next video, and drop a like. That would be great. In this intermediate video, Daniel King, a relatively busy YouTuber with almost 2,000 subscribers, has a problem with evolution. I mean, don't we all? I would have liked one of those cool traits like a prehensile tail or the ability to fly, but whatever. The problem he has with evolution means that God must exist. Whilst I have such limited knowledge on evolution, Erica from the channel Gutsick Gibbon has kindly agreed to help out.
Thanks so much, Tix, for having me on to discuss young Earth creationism. You know what? Maybe you owe me. I'm Gutsick Gibbon. I run the Gutsick Gibbon YouTube channel where I discuss things like young Earth creationism, but also human evolution, the evolution of other primates, general paleontology, general zoology, etc.
You can find Erica's channel in the description, and I do really recommend checking her out. Her knowledge on primate evolution is staggering. So what is the problem with evolution, and how does this problem prove a god?
What is the problem with evolution?
I mean, I just said that. Keep up. The next part of the video has some extremely dramatic music, which may trigger the copyright infringement fairy. So, obviously I'll change it up a bit. But if you want to see the original dark-themed music intro, the link, as always, is in the description. I think I prefer mine anyway.
Premise A, something cannot come from nothing.
Oh, jeez. Okay, let's entertain it for a fraction of a second. Something can't come from nothing. Fine. But first off, please define nothing. Your nothing and my nothing may be completely different. But also, with your beliefs, something can come from nothing, if I'm not mistaken. What did a god make the earth out of? Its lack of ingredients could be your definition of nothing. If I had any idea about quantum mechanics, I'd be able to explain how theoretically a pure vacuum with no particles in it could still make particles poof into existence constantly. But I know nothing about that, so I wouldn't even try. Do you know anything about that, Erica?
Whoa. This is supposed to be a video about evolution. Why are we talking about the Big Bang and cosmology? Unless we're using Kent Hovind's definition of evolution, which includes like 7 different things that and only he uses it. Evolution, very simply, just refers to the fact that allelic frequencies in populations of existing organisms will change over time, and that change can result in things like mass morphologic alterations and speciation. This is something that we see today both in the field and in the lab. Organisms, critters in populations change in response to their environments due to things like differential reproductive success. Critters that are more fit for their environment will reproduce more than ones that aren't, and their favorable genes will be passed on. So why are we talking about space? As for something can't come from nothing, I feel like I have to note that at some point, God had to come from nothing, right? Aren't we just pushing the problem back?
Yeah. Exactly.
Premise B, there is something.
I concur. As far as we can demonstrate, something is here. I am something. The something you're watching this video on is also something. We are very much something.
I mean, yeah, unless we're going to regress into like solipsism. I'm comfortable saying that there is something.
Premise C, these somethings are systematic, complex, and finely tuned.
Back to disagreeing. Some things are very complex. Some really aren't. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by systematic, and the ambiguity in finely tuned is open to interpretation. You could mean in the colloquial sense that it appears that we are finely tuned to, I don't know, breathe the way we do, or you could mean that some outside being tuned us finely to be the way we are. Which, of course, you would need to demonstrate. But obviously, you knew that, right? Erica, would you say that humans are finely tuned, or are there some things about us that are a huge mess?
I'm struggling to see how we're going to wrap this back around to talking about evolution, at least in the sense that literally everyone uses it. But that being said, we can talk about fine-tuning. Organisms are naturally selected for their environments, right? And by naturally selected for, that kind of implies some kind of intent, right? Really, it's fit organisms are filtered by their environments. So organisms weren't created for the areas that they live and the niches that they inhabit, but rather they were created by the niches they inhabit and the habitats that they live in. This might feel like fine-tuning, or at least appear to be some kind of fine-tuning, but it isn't fine-tuning any more than a puddle is fine-tuned for the hole that it inhabits. Water molds to the fine contours of any given vessel that it finds itself in. And in the same way, organisms are filtered through the environments that they live in, and they tend to take on qualities through successive generations that make them most fit for it. But unlike puddles, these filters in living organisms don't aim for perfection. They simply select the best of the available pool. This is how we get rigged solutions that may hurt an organism down the line. We humans, for example, are highly adapted for our bipedal locomotion style, but ask anyone who is over the age of 40 if their back hurts sometimes, and they'll say yes. This is because bipedalism as a youngster is great, but as you get older, you start to weigh and press on the nerves that are in your lower back, and eventually, because of the nature of senescence, this is going to come around to bite you. Elements of bipedalism in our ancient ancestors were selected for because they gave them some kind of fitness advantage, but evolution didn't really care as long as they reproduced if that advantage later down the line made your back hurt as you aged.
I knew it was a good idea to have you on this video.
Conclusion, therefore, there must have been something capable of designing the complex universe that we live in. This something we call God.
This conclusion is just displaying how unwilling you are to explore other possibilities, and instead, you're jumping to undemonstrated conclusions. No premise mentioned God. No premise demonstrated that things are in fact finely tuned. Sure, if things had been demonstrated to be finely tuned, who's to say that it wasn't Lisa the rainbow giraffe pooping beings into existence from her majestic rainbow butt? What would you say to Daniel that could convince him of evolution, Erica?
What a lofty question to ask. Thanks, Tick. I think what I would say, first and foremost, is that accepting evolution does not mean that you have to reject God. I think there's a reason why so many Christians accept evolution and the ancient age of the earth today, because it's very simply a process that we again see happening in the field and in the lab. As for the fossil record, it makes a very simple prediction. We should see slow morphologic change over geologic time from knowably basal forms to their modern derived condition. In the case of humans, we see this in spades, and we see this in spades in other species and organisms as well. I would also say that when we look at genetics, which is perhaps the best way to determine how closely related two things are, given we use paternity tests, which are admissible in court, that we see this nested hierarchy genetically. We see that all organisms are related to each other, and we can use molecular clocks to trace this backwards in time and see when they diverged from a common ancestor. I would also say that it's a mighty large coincidence that those molecular clocks within genetics, which are of course independent from the fossil record, confirm and corroborate the fossil record, and vice versa, timing-wise. I would also note that the Earth is definitely very ancient, that we know this through things like radiometric dating, which is indeed an accurate and viable process considering our entire fossil fuel industry relies on it working in order to find things like coal, oil, and natural gas. But I don't think any of that would actually convince him. I think that our friend Dr. King here is very intent on not being an ape or an animal, because that would make him feel less special.
According to the principle of Occam's razor, The simplest explanation is probably the right one.
Who's to say that the process of gradual changes in species isn't the simplest? Not that I explained that well at all. Exactly why we have Erica.
What was he going to say?
Occam's razor.
But yes, Tick is right. As for the simplest explanation, I really do think that evolution works for that. Although he's not talking about evolution, he's talking about abiogenesis. We haven't talked about evolution a single time in this entire video. But what is simpler? That there is a natural mechanism that is in place that allows fit organisms to reproduce more often, resulting in these changes in allelic frequencies and populations, or that a cosmic deity has to come down and tinker every single time an organism reproduces. Also, if you really want to get into the weeds and go for the simplest explanation, I think nothing life is one step shorter than nothing cosmic deity life. But if you want to involve God in this necessarily, then cosmic deity creates a mechanism that maintains biodiversity 3.8 billion years ago is also more simple than cosmic deity creates every single individual organism as its own thing 6,000 years ago, all while maintaining that everything has the appearance of age, and then proceeds to tinker every single time these animals are boinking and reproducing. So I don't really know that we want to play the Occam's razor game here, Dr. King.
So which explanation is simpler? That the non-living universe appeared from nothing, from this non-living material life spontaneously arose?
What is non-living material life? He really should have hired an editor. That was just complete word salad. How embarrassing.
This life then mutated billions, if not trillions of times over millions of years to finally produce apes?
Well, at least that he accepts humans are apes, I think.
Or that a creator carefully designed and brought the universe, life, and humanity into existence.
Well, I know what the laziest answer would be. I can't get my head around exactly how the universe came to be, and can't explain how, eventually, non-organic life potentially sparked into organic life around hydrothermal vents. So, I'll just make up something that magicked it all, so I don't actually have to do any work. Got it.
Again, we haven't talked about evolution, not one single time. We're still talking about abiogenesis. Why didn't he just call this the problem with abiogenesis? I guess it's because evolution gets more clicks. I mean, I really don't think that this guy could define evolution, as evidenced by the comment section of that video, where he tells someone who asks for the definition of evolution to Google it.
Extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary explanations.
That is the biggest mess-up of all time. I'm almost certain the saying is, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And you know what? I'm willing to bet that your extraordinary claim that a god did it has no demonstrable evidence to back it up, whereas Erica here could no doubt explain and prove evolution in less than a minute.
As for the support for abiogenesis, this is an unanswered question, but the literature for origin of life research is indeed very deep, and I would propose that it's making strides each and every year. The support for evolution, on the other hand, once life arrives 3.8 billion years ago, is ubiquitous and permeates every aspect of biology. There's a reason why when creationists try to argue against evolution, they always mainly argue against the straw man of evolution and abiogenesis, because evolution as its own mechanism is just absolutely impossible to deny.
Minute random changes spread over millions of years cannot explain our existence. Science simply cannot explain the origin of life, the origin of biological complexity, or the origin of personal consciousness.
Seriously, science can't explain biological complexity? Well, Erica, it sounds as though you're absolutely wasting your time. Have you thought about changing careers and going down a different path?
Yeah, Tick, I guess you're right. Guess I better start over. Maybe instead of getting my PhD in biological anthropology, as I'm trying to do now, I can go back, start the Dr. King way, and end up getting my doctorate in ministry.
If I start with nothing, that nothing will still be nothing, whether I wait 1 year or 1,000,000 years. The addition of millions of years of time does not solve the fundamental impossibility of design appearing from nothing.
You're the only one here saying that something did come from nothing, though. Awkward. Notice I left out the word design. Yeah, we're not getting caught in that trap.
Take a piece of iron ore, lay it on your desk. How many millions of years will you wait before the ore spontaneously forms itself into the intricate springs and levers that enable a watch to accurately tell time?
Tell me you don't understand how watches are made without telling me you don't understand how watches are made. Seriously, though, does this guy just mess everything up? The watchmaker fallacy, the god of the gaps, extraordinary circumstances needing an extraordinary imagination instead of knowledge. Wow, I'm still not convinced he's demonstrated any problem with evolution. Maybe I missed something. Have you seen a problem yet, Erica?
Still no problems with evolution, Tick, but we did get a nice, stupid rendition of the watchmaker argument, which is just... I really do think that is the worst mangling of it that I've seen thus far. So, props there.
A tiny bird is far more precise and complicated than a 747 airplane. The bird has millions of interlocking cells and processes that work together to keep the bird in flight. It is absurd to imagine that a plane put itself together.
I'm actually lost for words. Who on earth is suggesting that a plane put itself together? Who on earth is suggesting that birds do?
But without batting an irreducibly complex eye, the evolutionist says, birds evolved over time.
It wouldn't be a video by a layman creationist if we didn't have the appeal to design. No one's suggesting that birds spontaneously generated out of chance prebiotic chemicals, right? This is a slow step-by-step process that's taken 3.8 billion years to actually occur, and complex life only emerged around 555 million years ago. Interestingly enough, the vast majority of these irreducibly complex structures that are being proposed, namely the eye in this case, do have their step-by-step process displayed in extant organisms, from simple eye spots all the way to pinhole cameras and to the complex eye that we see in things like mammals and more today. But the problem is actually twofold, because it's not just that evolution does explain the biodiversity of life that we see today, it's also that intelligent design doesn't. Intelligent design has no mechanisms, it has no models, it has absolutely no criteria for distinguishing design from natural processes, of which most creationists at least accept a few. So the problem here is that intelligent design has absolutely nothing, not even a modicum of science about it. Something that I don't think Dr. King here really realizes.
The evidence from design is increasing.
No, the evidence of design isn't increasing. There would have to be some in the first place for it to increase.
The more we know about the universe, the more we know about the complexity of biological life.
I know I say it almost every video, but just saying it doesn't make it true. Yes, I agree that the more we discover about all this, the more we find just how complex biological life is. But instead of continually demonstrating how you can't fathom just how incredibly elaborate it is and asserting it was all done by an undemonstrated being, you could go and pick up some books or even watch a few gutsick Gibbon videos.
And the more apparent it is that we in our world have been carefully designed. Only someone intent on denying the existence of a creator believes that the staggering symmetry of the universe is a random occurrence.
The universe isn't symmetrical, as far as I'm aware.
Or that the intricate design of the human body could drag itself up from the primordial mud.
I'm not even sure what you said there, Daniel. No one is suggesting that humans dragged themselves out of the mud, as far as I'm aware. And not accepting evolution doesn't automatically mean a god did it. Though I think it goes without saying that evolution is undeniable.
The complexities of the human body are indeed traced, having changed morphologically through geologic time over the past 7 million years, from a basal Miocene ape all the way to now. From all of the complexities that go into being a bipedal animal, to our large brain case size, to the minutiae of our dentition in our hands. It's all there, traced from Sahelanthropus chidensis through Aurora tugenensis, through both species of Ardipithecus, both Kadaba and Ramidus, through all of the Australopithecines, both the East African varieties and the South African varieties, in our side branch of the Paranthropines, through early, middle, and all the way to late Homo, when we shared the Earth with 4, probably more, other hominins, including Homo neanderthalensis, the Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, and Homo naledi.
From the enormous cosmos to the microscopic cell, one thing is obvious: God is there.
If it's that obvious, why hasn't it been demonstrated? Really, it's that simple. Offer one undeniable piece of evidence and we can go from there. If not, I think it's safe to assume that Lisa the rainbow giraffe poops out life. Or it was evolution. Well, I don't know about you, Erica, but I didn't notice any real problems with evolution from Dr. Daniel. Oh, yeah, he's a doctor. I won't ask how that makes you feel.
Didn't get any problems with evolution in this video. Instead, we got special pleading for design, complaining about abiogenesis and not understanding what it is, and of course, no criteria for what distinguishes design from non-design. It was basically just, I don't understand it, so it can't be true. I think it's safe to say evolution perhaps makes a bit more sense for explaining the biodiversity of life on Earth. Thank you again for having me on, Tick. Although this wasn't especially good for my stomach ulcers, it was fun to see what the little guys are up to in the intelligent design ministries. Find me at gutsick Gibbon, the YouTube channel, where you can like, comment, and of course subscribe and smash the button, ring the bell, as you should be doing here with this video, and subscribing to Skeptic as well.
Thanks to Erica the Gutsick Gibbon for helping me out today. All her links are in the description. As for this video demonstrating problems with evolution, I'm going to skeptic Erica's word as being way more accurate. Did you see any problems with evolution here? Let me know in the section below. A big thank you to this month's ticks on Patreon, MISM, Addy Rockart, and the absolute lunatic Jimmy, as well as all the base ticks. You can become a supporter on Patreon too, at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically, and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.